TheRossKaminsky.com.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
He's a great guy.
Now, Ross Kaminsky on Denver's talk station, 630 KHAL.
Oh boy, do I wake up to a lot of emails from folks today, from friends and relatives, and talking about last night's first presidential debate, and the verdict is fairly unanimous. The verdict is basically a giant head slap, and what a national disgrace that was. Oh boy. I don't know what you say about it, but I'm going to say some stuff. Actually, I'm going to say a lot of stuff. And for those who didn't listen or maybe did but want to hear some other thoughts about this, I've got plenty of audio for you as well. Michael Goodwin, writing for the New York Post, who is quite a Trump-leaning guy, did a hot mess of a debate and a bad plan by Trump. John Podhoretz, I don't know that he's very Trumpy, but a little bit, and certainly nobody's idea of a liberal or a Democrat. Longtime conservative writer, John Podhoretz. His piece this morning in the New York Post, his opinion piece entitled, "Trump's Over-Belligerence Led Him to Stumble in First Debate." Oh, my goodness. So, where to start? If you watched the debate, you heard a few moments of actual answers to actual questions. In fact, the debate started off with one. Sorry, I had to plug something in there, the beauty of doing radio from home. Okay, so the debate started off with an actual answer to an actual question right out of the gate. I'm going to give you an example of, one of the few good parts of this debate. Right out of the gate, moderator Chris Wallace, who seemed, quite flustered by all of this, and it did seem online like a lot of Trump supporters thought that Chris Wallace wasn't exactly fair and balanced. I thought he was fine, but a lot of Trump supporters thought that Chris Wallace seemed biased against Trump. I didn't see that, but okay. But he started right out with a question about the Supreme Court, which makes sense. It's biggest issue, one of the biggest issues going on right now. And we got something like an actual answer from President Trump, and actually the right answer.
We won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her, and very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped.
They meant the Senate.
And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
Right. So if the debate had mostly been like that, relatively calm, with an occasional little brawl or knockdown or whatever, then I think people would have learned a lot more. Let me interject one thing here. I saw and actually replied to a tweet from Michelle Malkin yesterday, who made some comment about how folks wanted a highbrow debate. Not everybody. How some people want a highbrow debate like the Washington, D.C. swamp and people like that, and they get all disappointed when the debate isn't highbrow. And my response was that it wasn't about highbrow. It was just that we didn't learn anything. Like, I'm down with a brawl. I'm absolutely good with a brawl. But let's make it at least an entertaining brawl where, there's some actual punches landed and we're actually having some fun. It wasn't any of that. It might have been in the Podhoretz piece, but I read somewhere anyway about how this, there was a pretty good analogy. This seemed like something that was billed as a great wrestling match, and instead what you had was one guy, Trump, come out and jump up on the ropes and start yelling and refuse to come down. And the other guy, Biden, standing in the middle of the ring with a confused look on his face. And referee, Chris Wallace, having no idea what to do, looking at one, looking at the other, you know, trying to talk him into the fight that was supposed to be. And instead, we got none of that. But it was kind of frustrating because after that first, and again, at the beginning, couple good moments in the debate, it just devolved into a bunch of stuff that sounded like this.
But you
I just
agree-
want to
Hey,
make
Joe,
sure.
you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go,
the wrong
go,
night
Joe,
at the
go.
wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let
Now you're
him-
disavowing it.
There
Go
is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
And in a way, it's funny, right? It would be really funny if one of these guys wasn't going to be the next president of the United States, but one of them is. And so that show, like, if all you knew, if you just showed up on Earth yesterday with but could speak English somehow, and realized that, somehow learned that this debate was going to be between the two people who are going to end up leading the most important, most powerful country on Earth, you'd have thought to yourself, okay, you know, somehow that must be a country of four people, and the other two are sick, and so all that was left was these two, because clearly neither of them is capable of running a country. And it was, I know that sounds harsh, but gosh, was that bad. I will say, and I'm going to try to focus a little, at least a little bit on substance here. You know, overall, they each got a few good points in on substance, and they each said a few things that probably backfired on them as well. There was precious little substance. It was hard to glean it out when you were yelling at the TV, you know, to yell at President Trump to stop interrupting, or yell at Joe Biden to stop using so many words to say nothing at all. But there were some interesting revelatory moments. Here's one example. This is something that actually could be an interesting point of debate within the Democratic Party itself after the debate.
Your party
That is
wants
simple.
to go socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of.
So let's talk about substance a little bit, even though it's a little difficult to do so given what we saw. Let's talk about it a little bit. Multiple times over the course of the evening, President Trump accused Joe Biden of being very far left and tried to tie Biden to things like ending private health insurance and supporting the Green New Deal. Now, for the record, I think Biden, I don't think Biden overtly supports ending private health insurance, but I do think he supports an interim step, and this did come up yesterday, public option, that is the camel's nose under the tent, and it is the left's first step toward intentionally eliminating private health insurance. And I just don't know whether Joe Biden is dishonest enough or too stupid to understand that his plan really is the path to eliminate private health insurance. Because in his brain, I think when he says he doesn't support eliminating private health insurance, I think he means it. But he's not smart enough. I think he's not smart enough to understand how he's being played, and that the so-called public option is designed to put private health insurance out of business. Anyway, he said he's not for ending private health insurance. Then, a little bit later on, President Trump pushed him on the Green New Deal. And Biden said, I don't support the Green New Deal. I support my plan. Now, as somebody noted on Twitter, Biden's website says that the Green New Deal is a good framework, and it's a framework that he builds his plan around. So he's kind of trying to have it both ways. But the interesting conversation here, this part of it, is whether Joe Biden's moving away from some of those far left positions, right? Moving away from socialized medicine, moving away, rhetorically at least, from the Green New Deal, whether it will cost him any support among Bernie Sanders supporters and the far left of the party. I know this is hard to believe, but believe me when I tell you that there are people who are so far left and so anti-everything and so wrapped up in their own minutia about environmentalism, socialism, that sort of thing, that they actually see Biden and Trump as so similar that to them, there isn't a difference between them big enough to make it worth choosing between them because neither of them is close enough to their radical left points of view. Now, for those of us who are not people of the left, it seems pretty obvious that Joe Biden is much, much, much closer to the radical left than Donald Trump would ever be. And yet, there are these folks out there. And so it does seem like, okay, so a discussion that happened yesterday then, after the debate, will Biden lose some of those people by moving away from the far left positions? So I have a couple thoughts on that. Again, it's a big topic of debate that I was engaged in on Twitter until much too late last night. I don't think it'll have nearly as much of an effect as it might have because of the way Trump behaved during the debate. I think that the president's nonstop interruptions and stepping on answers and some of the stuff that he said caused a lot of people to almost not hear the substance of the debate. Or to think, if you didn't like Biden all that much, you might think, you know, I don't really dig this guy, and he doesn't seem very bright. But at least he's not being a complete jackass. And I think that a lot of the damage that could have been caused to Joe Biden, either to the left-wing base, abandoning him, or getting him to say things that would have moved moderates away from him, I just don't think it happened for Trump because he didn't let it happen. Dana Perino made a great point last night in her brief analysis on Fox after the debate, and that was President Trump spent so much time interrupting Joe Biden, talking over Joe Biden, and derailing the conversation where he probably should have let Biden talk more, because Biden's big risk last night wasn't Trump, it was Biden. And by stepping all over Biden and not letting him talk, Trump probably, or possibly at least, prevented Biden from getting to one of those patented Joe Biden gaffes that could really have hurt him. As Dana put it, Trump possibly prevented Biden from fumbling the ball on the 1 yard line. Remarkable to hear Dana use a sports analogy. So, yeah. If I were scoring this, you know, if this were a boxing match and I were scoring it, I guess I would have to call it a split decision in favor of Biden, right? A narrow win for Biden. He didn't really win as much as Donald Trump just made it a mess of a fight, and Trump didn't really win either. But I do want to keep going with some of the substance of the debate. And this was another back and forth where, again, on the facts, I actually think Trump had the upper hand, but Trump didn't elaborate quite well enough to make the point that, I mean, he made the point, you'll hear, but I wish he had made it a little better in a way that would have been perfectly understandable to the very, very small number of still undecided voters out there. This is on the issue of Roe v. Wade as it ties into President Trump's new Supreme Court nominee.
The president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the
said
ballot? It's not
you're-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And
just
you don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
I think the president is exactly right on that. I just don't know how many people understood what he meant. I'll try to lay it out there a little bit. First of all, what did Trump mean when he said there's nothing happening there? Again, I think I understand what he meant. What I believe the president meant was that there does not appear right now to be any significant legal case making its way through lower courts that puts Roe v. Wade at risk of being overturned by a Supreme Court decision anytime soon. Furthermore, the Supreme Court has mostly tended not to take cases related to Roe v. Wade. Now, we do know that Amy Coney Barrett is pro-life, but we don't know, and she has commented on this in the past, we don't know that that means she would go as far as simply to strike down Roe v. Wade versus perhaps at the edges allowing a few incursions into, for example, regulating late-term abortion. And President Trump was right to say, first of all, there's nothing going on there right now, in the sense there's no big legal case going on right now where we would expect the Supreme Court to hear an abortion case anytime soon. And second, Trump is also right, absolutely right, to say to Joe Biden, you don't know Judge Barrett's position on Roe v. Wade, because Judge Barrett has said two very clear things, at least two. We know that she's anti-abortion, and we know that she has a strong belief in the value of Supreme Court precedent, not that it can never be touched, but that if you were going to overturn a precedent like Roe v. Wade, you better have a darn good reason. And she has never said that the current reasoning is enough to overturn it. Now, I don't know she wouldn't. I don't know she would. I'm not saying I have the answer to I know what she would do. I'm saying President Trump is right to tell Joe Biden, hey, Joe, you don't know, and you shouldn't be making these accusations. Much more right after this.
This is Denver's Talk Station with Ross Kaminsky now. Tom Martino at 10, 630 K.